like to welcome Nathan Ingram to talk about his book, Christ at the Coffee Shop, to our show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm glad I'm here.
Your book is about finding God in our everyday lives, which I think can be shown by the one quote from your book, where you go, I find God in the common places. He is on the roads, in the stores, in my home, and at the coffee shop.
It feels to me like, Sarah, that if we have to go to a mountaintop or have some peak experience of some sort to see God, most of us will probably miss him because a lot of us don't get there, But if we can find him in the everyday commonplace of things, even in a coffee shop, for instance, then, oh yeah, man, maybe God knows me and he cares something about me. And so that's just a neat thought to me.
Why did you decide to write Christ at the Coffee Shop?
It's the simplest and almost dumbest of things. I was teaching a Bible class and the preacher was listening. And at the end of the class, he came up to me and said, "That's the best Bible class I've ever heard in my life. You ought to write it down." And so I did.
Each of the short stories, there's usually a scripture verse attached
Yes.
to them.
Right.
So did you create the stories to go along with the scripture verse from, you use things from your own life and then you put them on the scripture verse? So does the scripture verse come first, or did the story come first and then you wrote with the scripture verse?
I don't know the answer to that. I've been reading the Bible a long time, and so I think about it a lot. And so it seems like it comes to me simultaneously, but sometimes if something happens to me and I and then I think, oh man, there's another indication right there, And so I just, and then I put the story down and say, okay, and here's what the Bible meant when it said that. And so it seems to just kind of tie in. My background's in psychology. I got a master's degree one time in psychology. And so I'm all the time trying to figure out, well, how does psychology and godliness and the Bible and all that fit together? And it kind of does. It's just kind of a really neat symbiosis there.
The stories in the book where you yourself are a young child. Like, for example, there's one where you forgot to milk the cow, or you left milking the cow too late at night, and that made your dad really angry.
Well, I did it on purpose because I always hated to milk the cow. I begged to milk a cow until I was 8, and then I begged not to till I was 18 when I left home. But this night it was too late, and I was scared of the dark, and I wanted my dad to go with me, and he wouldn't because he was home in his easy chair, and he thought I should have gone on time, before dark. And of course, I was too busy playing basketball and eating jelly sandwiches and whatnot, and so I didn't have time before dark. But yeah, and so he came. I nagged him for about an hour, and finally he said, "You go milk right now." And so I turned around, and one last time I said, "Well, go with me." And he got mad at me, Sarah. He was really mad. He got out of his chair and it wasn't to go help me go milk. It was to help me figure out I should have gone a lot time before that. But anyway, he caught me out in the yard, and he had his belt off, and he was fixing to just wail into me. And I deserved every bit of that one now for sure. But my brother was out there, and he was a long-haired hippie freak. He was 4 years older than me, but he was my hero. I loved him. And but he was out there when my dad got me, and he listened to a little bit of that, and he finally said, "Well, Dad, please quit whipping Nathan." And of course my dad wasn't going to listen to no 19-year-old long-haired boy tell him what to do. So he was rearing back for another swat, and my brother said, "Well, whip me instead." And good night, Sarah. I can't hardly even talk about that because it's like Jesus, you whipped me instead, and he wasn't guilty of anything. And I couldn't figure out even why he did it, because I thought he hated me most of the time because I was 4 years younger than him and I was a pest. But I figured out he did it because he wanted to, because he loved me.
Have many people reached out to you who have read your book about what it meant to them?
Yeah, quite a few people. It's it's just been kind of an amazing journey because it's my first book ever, and it, I've heard from quite a few people on what it meant to them, and it was really, I ended up, some guy found my book on a coffee table in Cairo, Egypt. I have no idea how it got there, and in Moscow and in South Africa. I don't even know how it got there, but I've just heard from a lot of different really neat stories about people who said that it helped them.
Thank you again so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you. You've been a wonderful hostess. Thanks very much.